It's time for your Low Country real estate market update. It's the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show. Brian is one of the top 1% real estate agents in Charleston. Find him online at listingsincharleston.com. That's listingsincharleston.com. Or call him at 843-345-1273. Now, broadcasting from the WTMA studios, here's your host, Brian Beatty.
Good morning, Charleston. Thanks for joining me for another action-packed hour of real estate information for you guys. If this is your first time tuning into the program, I'm your host, Brian Beatty. Thanks for joining me. Over the next hour, we're going to talk about national, regional, local real estate news and data. I'm going to share my experiences as one of the top agents in the area. Our team has been ranked in the top 1% of agents nationwide, certainly in the Carolinas, and we've done about 1,000 transactions. So I share my experiences with you, my insights with you about the market, and I help educate you about the process so that when it comes time for you to buy or sell or invest in real estate, you are an informed consumer. You know the right questions to ask. You should know what's going to happen before it happens, and you're positioned to have the best real estate transaction you could think of. That's the goal of this program. And so it's a pleasure being here this morning. We've got a lot of really good information to share with you guys. First, let me say that if you are thinking about buying, selling, or investing in real estate, my team and I would love the opportunity to speak with you off air. My cell phone number, which of course you can text as well, is 843-345-1273. That's 345-1273. So feel free to give me a call if you have any questions or if you're thinking about buying, selling, or investing. Or you can go to my website if you want some more information on us. You can look at, who we are and what we do, what we sell, search the MLS, get an instant value report for your home. You can listen to every show that I've ever recorded here on WTMA on my website, and we have a lot of free resources there as well, right on the homepage. A 2018 buyer guide, a 2018 seller guide, and a guide to home ownership for millennials, right there on listingsincharleston.com. So thanks again for joining me this morning. Here's what I have planned. I want to talk first about the market, give you guys a recap, let you know kind of how we've started the year off. I'll be honest, not much has changed. In fact, with inventory being kind of the main headline, at least in our talks on this program, it continues to be the front runner. It's what everybody's talking about. Shortage of inventory, driving prices up, demand very high. So we're going to talk about that. I'm going to kind of, give you some insight into what things looked like maybe 10 years ago and how much different it was then than it is now. We're going to talk about specific stats within each of the Tri-County area, Charleston, Berkeley, and Dorchester counties. We're going to have a good friend of mine. He is my go-to lender. He is also my go-to fishing buddy, Michael Santelli of Movement Mortgage, come on this program a little later. And he's going to talk about mortgages. I've got some questions for him, help you guys better understand the mortgage market and the process associated with obtaining a mortgage. And then I really want to focus my time and energy on just buyers. If you're going to purchase a home, where do you start? How can you approach the process of purchasing a home in the most efficient, productive way possible to ensure that you're getting the best deal possible? You're working with the right agent. You have a good experience when you purchase that home. So that's the plan over the next hour. And again, if you want to reach out to me, anything I say strikes a chord, you have a question, comment, or of course, if you'd like to consider hiring my team, give me a call, 843-345-1273. That's my number off air, 345-1273, or go to listingsincharleston.com. So let's talk about this market that we're in. If you look at kind of last year, right? So I think that we have had several years of appreciation, several years of inventory continuing to reduce, demand continuing to increase. And I think that, even last year, we kind of had this renewed optimism of the market, but it was cautious optimism. A lot of us, had seen and experienced and maybe gotten burned by the market crash 10 years ago. Kind of crazy to think that was 10 years ago, a decade ago at this point. Gosh, I've been in this business a little while now, 12 years. But here's the deal. Inventory continues to be low. I want to talk about inventory for a minute. I want to talk about months supply of inventory, which is how we as real estate agents really kind of measure the health of a real estate market. It's where we determine, are we in a buyer's market? Are we in a normal balanced market? Are we in a seller's market? Of course, we'll talk about prices and all that fun stuff, and then I'm going to get to some countywide data. So, no matter what happens with regard to kind of the external forces that might influence a purchase, whether that be tax legislation or mortgage rates or employment rates, the overall economy, new family formations, the availability of new construction, all of these things. Really, the bottom line is that buyers still want to buy a house. What's been interesting, though, is that because we've had this shortage of inventory for years now, buyers appear as though they are being more selective in the homes they purchase. In reality, buyers really aren't being more selective, quote unquote. There is just less to choose from, so they don't have as many options to weigh. So they're okay in some instances with waiting for their idea of a dream home to hit the market. In some instances, that's taking quite a while. And in some instances, especially in the first-time home buyer segment of our market, if they wait too long, the amount of money that they are willing and able to spend on a home is a fairly static number. Most people go for almost as much as they could possibly afford without getting into financial trouble. They really do tend at most times to kind of max out the amount of home they can purchase. Well, if prices continue to go up and interest rates continue to go up and it impacts affordability, there are instances in West, those people are priced out of the market. And it's not a scare tactic. It's not me saying, hey, buy now, buy now, buy now. But it also kind of is, because if you have a finite budget and you are in an area where home prices are escalating fairly rapidly, the longer you wait, the more it's going to cost, which means that, rather than seeing that home that had the granite and the stainless steel and you just didn't like a few little things about the house, well, now you're looking at homes that don't have those features because that's all you can afford. And it just kind of trickles up from there. So let's just talk about some of these market overview stats for a moment, and then let's talk about inventory and let's talk about the Tri-County area. So if I look at just new listings, new properties that have hit the market, and I compare that to January of 2017, new listings were down about 7%. We put about the same amount of homes under contract, which was a little over 1,500 homes. Closings were up 8%. So we had a 7% reduction in inventory and an 8%, almost an 8% increase in sales. The average days on market is about 63 days in the Tri-County area. That's down from 65 in January of last year. Median sales price right now sits at $258,000. That's up almost 8% from January of 2017. It was $239,900 back in January of 2017. Now it's $258,000. The average sales price, again, two different numbers. I'm assuming you guys know the difference between median and average. We tend to look at median because if you sell an $8 million home in a month, it tends to skew some of those stats. But the average sales price right now in the Tri-County area is about $361,000, which is up over 11% from January of 2017. If I look at the inventory of homes available for sale, we already talked about new listings that hit the market being down about 7% from last year. But if you look at the total amount of inventory available for sale, in January 2017, we had about 5,400 homes available to choose from. Last month, we only had 4,700. That's down 13%. Now, January of last year, we still were in what we considered a seller's market. There was a shortage of inventory. Now we're down even 13% less than that. But what we use as real estate agents, it's kind of like some industry lingo here, but we use months supply of inventory. And months supply of inventory is a calculation wherein we take the total inventory of homes available for sale, and then we just divide that by the average number of properties that go under contract on a month over a year basis. So a normal balanced market where there's no oversupply or undersupply of homes, there's no upward pressure or downward pressure on pricing. It's just kind of a normal balanced market in line with appreciation, sits somewhere between 6 to 8 months. In January of 2017, where we were at 3.6 months worth of inventory, now we're at 3 months worth of inventory, which is a 17% reduction. Now, let's just go back for a minute. Let's take a little field trip, if you will, and let's think about, let's go back to spring of 2007. Now, I already told you guys that in January, last month, we had about 4,700 homes available for sale. In spring of 2007, we had 12,000. We had almost 3 times the inventory, which is crazy. And if you look at month supply of inventory, that peaked back in the summer, kind of fall of 2009, where we had almost 18 months worth of inventory. Now we have 3, meaning if nothing else came on the market, theoretically, we'd be sold out in 3 months. So that's why we're in a seller's market. There's just not a lot to choose from. And that's why people are perceiving buyers to be more picky. Well, buyers are picky no matter what. It's just that now they have less options. So they appear to be more picky. So if you're in a market and you're selling your home and there are a bunch of options, you know, as opposed to being the only person available on your street, if there are more options available in your particular area and price range, there are still more buyers than there have been in the past several years. Certainly toward the bottom of the market, there were less buyers. But if you're competing with a bunch of other properties available for sale right now, you have to be strategic. You want to be in the top 3. You always want to be in the top 3 among the homes that buyers look at, which requires strategic pricing. It requires you to have your home in a certain condition. And of course, it requires a real estate agent that knows how to market your property to create exposure and then take that excitement and turn it into business. Get them to sign on the line which is dotted. That's our job, is to be consultants for our clients and salesmen to everybody else. We are in sales. That's what we do. So that's just the overall general summary of the market. And, the cliff notes on that are still a seller's market, still a fantastic time to sell. If you're one of those people that's a bit of an opportunistic seller, you don't necessarily have to sell. But if you could get a certain amount for your home, man, that would be great. I could go and I could do this or that or the other. I'm telling you, basically the time is now, at least based on what I'm seeing. There are certain segments of our market, however, that are not so drastically weighted in favor of sellers. There are several markets within the Tri-County, little pockets that are normal markets, and there are even some pockets that are buyers markets. There's an oversupply of homes. There are certain areas where you have a bunch of sellers competing with new construction, and there's a fairly substantial plethora of homes to choose from. I won't go into those specific areas, but if you think you might be in one of them, let me know. I'll run the stats for you, and I'll give you a really good idea of when would be the right time to sell. What is your home worth? How do we create a strategy to compete with all those other people and win? Now, I'm just going to read off these stats really quickly because we're going to have Michael Santelli on the line here in just a minute to talk about the mortgage market and give you guys some updates on that. So let's talk Berkeley County first, and I'm only going to read off the single-family detached stats. If you want to know what's going on in your area, in your neighborhood, you want to know what your home is worth, again, feel free to give me a call, 843-345-1273. That's 345-1273, or go to listingsincharleston.com, and I'll happily put that report together for you. No cost, no obligation. Of course, we do at least one of those a day for folks. Just a good idea to know how much your home is worth, especially if you're going to sell your home here this year. You want to start to look at some trends, and you want to look at some areas for opportunity to list your home and sell it for top dollar in the shortest amount of time. But here we go. With Berkeley County, if I look at just the year-to-date stats compared to 2017, we've got about a 2% reduction in new listings. Closings were up 2%. The median sales price was up 4%. You're going to get about 97.5% on your asking price if you put your home on the market, and it's going to sell in about 47 days. Total inventory is down about 6%. If I look at Dorchester County, we have had a 6% reduction in the amount of new listings that have hit the market. Closings were up 9%. The median sales price is up 5%. You're getting 97.7% of your asking price on average. You're selling it in 46 days on average, which is down almost 20% from 2017. And we have a 12% reduction in the amount of inventory available for sale. Now, Charleston County, which is where we have the bulk of our sales, new listings are down a little over 10%. Closings, however, are up 15%. The median sales price is up 10%. You're getting about 95% of your asking price in about 66 days, and inventory is down 15%. In January 2017, we had about 2,250 homes available for sale. Now we have 1,900. So sellers, if you're thinking about selling, the buyers need you. They want you. They are watching the market like a hawk. It is a great time to consider selling. If that's something I can help you with, please give me a call, 843-345-1273. And again, go to my website, listingsincharleston.com. brianbeatty.com. Stick around. We'll be right back with more on the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show here on the Big Talker 1250 WTMA.
Have a real estate question? Ask Brian Beatty. Send him an email, lowcountryhomesales@gmail.com. The Brian Beatty Real Estate Show is on 1250 WTMA. WTMA! Now, here's more of the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA.
Welcome back, Charleston. Thanks again for tuning in to the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show here on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA. Again, I'm your host, Brian Beatty. Very excited this morning to have a good buddy of mine. He is my preferred lender. He is also my preferred fishing buddy, Michael Santelli of Movement Mortgage. And we're going to talk about mortgages for about 10 minutes or so. And for those of you that are listening, you might have some questions for Michael. We're certainly going to share his contact information. I encourage you to reach out to him directly. So thanks so much for being on the program this morning.
Yeah, it's good to be here, man. It's a privilege and an honor to share the mic with you and reach out to all your listeners and connect with them about mortgages. I have to tell you, man, I'm a big fan of the show. Enjoy the knowledge you share. The expert analysis that you give into what can be a very complex real estate market is it's pretty incredible. And you've got some lucky listeners out there.
I appreciate it, man. So tell us a little bit about yourself and tell us about Movement Mortgage. I think Movement Mortgage sometimes falls into the same category that Keller Williams Realty does, where people don't really know who Keller Williams Realty is, but we're actually the largest real estate company in the world. We sell more homes than any other real estate company in the world, and we sell more sales volume than any other real estate company in the world. Mm-hmm. Movement Mortgage is very similar. So tell us about you and about them.
Yeah. So actually, just recently here, it's actually proud to announce this on the show. We just became the #1 purchase lender in the Charleston Tri-County area.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's good stuff. So again, I'm Michael Santelli, loan officer of Movement Mortgage here in Charleston. I moved here back in 2013, actually from the beautiful state of Hawaii on the Oahu Islands, man. So, not sure if you ever heard of a lava zone. It's a lot like a flood zone, a little bit more dangerous, but it can be complex out there. So I got to know how important it is to have an awesome lender to work with. When I moved here, I quickly found Movement Mortgage and absolutely fell in love. So not only is the process incredible and unique and special to help buyers and put them in the best position possible, the company itself is incredible. From what we do in the philanthropic aspect of Movement Mortgage, giving back to the charities, we actually have a nonprofit ourselves where we give, we start charter schools. We've got something that we call a movement center. We actually put nonprofits in actual offices so they can operate more effectively, more efficiently. And it's a really special thing to be a part of. Not to mention the awesome people that work for the company. I mean, they become family as well too.
Awesome. I didn't know that about the nonprofit.
Mm-hmm.
That's very cool.
It's very cool.
So let me ask you. Let's start off a little simple here. So a lot of people always talk about interest rates, and that's kind of how they compare you guys. You know. So first, why don't you just tell us, how are interest rates determined?
Are we talking about rates nationally or individually or both?
Just individually. You have John Doe comes up to you. And, what's your interest rate?
Right.
And then he's going to go to another lender and ask the same question. So how do they determine what the interest rate is?
I love that question, and I get it all the time. And not just from buyers, too, but from real estate agents that I work with as well. It's just a simple question. But the truth is, it's completely different for every other person. Everyone has what we call a par interest rate, or a par score, if you will. And from there, we determine how much of a risk factor you are based on a couple of different things. So your credit score, obviously, is a big factor in that. Your loan to value, how much you're putting down, is also a big deal. The occupancy, is it a primary, a second home, or an investment? Is it a condo? Is it a multi-unit? That sort of thing. All of these comprise what we do to determine what your interest rate is. So quick example, and we'll move on there. But let's say we have a couple, they've got a 740 credit score, they're putting 20% down, buying a single family home. And you've got another person who's got a couple that's got a 680 credit score, they're putting 5% down and they're buying a condo. Inherently, one's more risky than the other, so their interest rate's different. We can't say what someone's interest rate is without having that conversation. So we really got to peel the layers back there.
Gotcha. And so, again, a lot of buyers only look at the interest rate you're offering them, but fees are also really important. So tell us what fees a buyer can expect when they get a mortgage and how that differs from company to company.
Yeah, it's a really important. And sometimes I'd say this is another dark area that buyers know exist, but they don't know what the fees are or what they go to before I actually get a chance to explain them. So it's important to point out, as lenders, we're tasked with gathering all of the fees in one centralized location. So we're going to gather the attorney's fees, your insurance fees, the property taxes, all of that stuff. We're going to put it on one document called the loan estimate. Okay. And then you're going to see the lender's fees on there as well, too. And it's broken down into sections. So if you look at section A of a loan estimate, or a closing disclosure as it's later called in the process, you're going to see lender fees. Now, typically, they're going to equal about $1,000. Just about all companies are. They might call it an underwriting fee, processing fee, application fee. Whatever it is, they might be a combination of all three. They usually total about $1,000. And if they're not, they are there, but they're what we call probably baked into the rate. So the interest rate might be just a little bit higher from that lender to another because those fees are actually incorporated into your interest rate. You just don't see them.
Interesting. Mm-hmm. So I've designed this show to kind of peel back the curtain on the real estate industry, give people insight into how our industry works and what they should be aware of, so that they can obviously achieve the highest level of success when buying or selling a house. And so is there any, exciting or maybe even troubling news kind of circulating within the mortgage industry that we should be aware of?
Yeah. Well, you do an incredible job of peeling back the layers, like we said at the beginning, man. As far as exciting news, maybe for loan officers and real estate agents, but one cool thing that's happened lately is the conforming loan limit, which used to be $417,100, just bumped up to $453,100 in 2018. So why that's important is that with only 5% down, someone can purchase a $475,755 home now with just 5% down, where before it used to be, I think it was like $453 off the top of my head, what it used to be. So that's a big deal. So only 5% down, getting into that big of a home is it's important. As far as that, obviously we know the interest rates are on the rise. We all see it unless you haven't left your house in the last month or turned on the television in the last month. Everyone knows that interest rates are on the rise. But to pull it back a little bit, we're still near historical lows. Imagine 15% rates that we had in the late 70s, early 80s. I mean, we're dramatically off of that. If you take a look at the historical trends, actually like on the Freddie Mac website, if you will, you're going to see that interest rates have been between 5 and 8% since seriously about the mid 80s, just till recently in like the 2011 era is when they kind of dipped below that and got real low.
Right.
And now we're just trending back to what I would call a normal interest rate.
Right.
Yeah, it's not a bad thing. It's a sign of a healthy economy, truthfully. I mean, obviously we don't want them to go too high because we start pushing out buyers, but we need to get them up a little bit, truthfully. So we're good at finding ways to make loans work. I don't want to scare people and think that, oh, now we're not going to qualify just because rates are going up to 5%. It's not the end of the world, and we're not even there yet. We don't know where we're going to be. So
that's been one of the hardest things to talk about on this program is how to anticipate the perceived increase in interest rates. And there have been so many false starts on it that people don't know what to think now.
Yeah.
It's reasonable to believe, however, that based on the current state of the economy, based on the current state of the housing market nationally, that we're ready. The market can sustain it.
Yeah,
that's really the question that should be asked and answered is, can we support it? Or if we jack rates up, are we just going to kind of have everything come crumbling down?
Right.
We've tried a few times and then they just go right back down.
Yep. We have, and I think it's a good time as well too. I think we're at the right point in our economy to maybe bump it up a little bit. Everything's healthy. I mean, the housing market, there's plenty of analysis out there and experts saying we're not going to see that big of a dip in home affordability. I mean, that's just the way it is. If anything, Brian, I think with a little bit of a higher interest rate, inventory might open up a little bit here in Charleston. So you just need to have the right lender that you can work with to trust that they're going to get you the best interest rate you can and provide an awesome process and as we go along and go through the home buying process itself.
Yep. So we're talking to Michael Santelli of Movement Mortgage. Michael, what's the one thing that you see people constantly struggle with when they're getting a loan?
Yeah. I would say the most important thing buying a home these days is getting pre-approved through underwriting beforehand.
So what does that mean?
So getting pre-approved beforehand, let's just say shopping for a home before you're pre-approved is like going to the grocery store without a wallet. You just don't know what you can afford. So why are you out there? You don't know what hangups are coming. So to kind of define it, pre-approval means that we have gathered a full application. We've got all of your supporting documents, and we've actually submitted your loan to underwriting and received a full loan commitment. Okay, that's very different than what we call a pre-qualification, which sometimes get used interchangeably, but they're very different things. A pre-qualification just means that someone like myself, a loan officer, has pulled your credit. maybe ran what we call automated underwriting, but for the most part, we've not sent the loan to underwriting. We've just said that it can work. And that has inherent dangers, especially for people that are self-employed, because we just don't know what that number is. We have to figure out what you can afford. So it's not only can we get you approved, it's how much can we get you approved for. And there's a lot of reasons why that's important, Brian.
Yeah. I talk on this program about the difference between pre-qualification, pre-approval, and approval. And I've said in the past that Movement Mortgage will take you all the way through the underwriting process and then tell you are approved to purchase a home at this price, which then allows us as buyer agents on my team to go to a seller or a listing agent and say, hey, we already are approved for the mortgage.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's such a stronger position to come from, especially when you're in a multiple offer situation.
It is. And there's a lot of layers to this as well, too. So a pre-approval, yes, I mean, it definitely allows us to get a number, but it's also important for that underwriting aspect because we know what the conditions are. So if you've been approved through underwriting, we know what your conditions are. As a loan officer, I'm going to work with you to knock all of those out beforehand. So we're getting the better copy of your ID, the extra pay stub, that missing page of the bank statement. We've already gathered all that. So when we come actually down to putting in a contract, we have only property-specific items left, like an appraisal, a property inspection, title insurance, title search, all that fun stuff that's property-specific. Mm-hmm. And that's a big deal. And then something else to really point out, too, I think this is really important, too. When you're submitting offers, I mean, if you think of it this way, if you're selling your home and you have two offers that come to you, okay, one of them is pre-qualified for the same amount as this pre-approval letter that comes through, but it says you're cleared to close, or we can close in as little as 7 business days. I mean, as a seller, it's a no-brainer which one you're going to pick. And in a market like this in Charleston, it should be a no-brainer for people. And I might add that there's a no commitment deal to getting pre-approved through underwriting. The only thing you're going to incur up to that is an inquiry on your credit report. That's it. And there's no commitment on the backside. So basically you've just done an application for free. There's no commitment on the backside of it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So let me ask you one more question. When you prepare people to go through the process, the loan process, what's the best singular piece of advice you give buyers?
So I guess I'm going to go back because I think it's that important. It's getting pre-approved beforehand. I mean, that's where all of the questions really get answered, if you will. Having to do your homework and speaking to a lender when you're 1 to 3 months out can make the difference, not just saving you money, but qualifying in the first place for the property when it hits the market. And that's the important thing. You're ready to go. And everyone knows here that the property can move fast.
Right.
And that's what we want. I mean, a good lender, too, I mean, I'm going to pull your credit so I know what your credit score is, and I'm going to do an analysis to see what I can get your score to. So just off the top, let's say your credit score is 614 when I pull it, and you're only eligible for an FHA loan at that point. Well, maybe there's a really easy way to get you above 620. So we're going to do that. I'm going to take a look and see, hey, what can we do to get you into a conventional loan as opposed to maybe a lesser product in the FHA. Another thing is, even if let's say you're a 738, and if I get you to a 740, your mortgage insurance is half and your interest rate goes down by 1/8. Well, I'm going to do that. I'm going to go the extra step personally to make sure we can get you the higher credit score so we can get you to the best interest rate possible. I mean, that's literally what my job is, and to ensure that that's a smooth closing.
Yeah, I'll tell you that just from my perspective, and for those of you that have listened to the program, we've done about 1,000 transactions on my team, and so let me just say this. If you don't do this beforehand, if you don't get pre-approved, and you're kind of going through the process while you're also going through all of the things associated with purchasing a property, you add on the stress of the home inspection and the appraisal and the termite inspection and all of those things while a lender is asking you to provide a bunch of documentation. Yeah. That's probably the biggest complaint that we get is, oh, gosh, they need this again. Or, why do you need page 4 of 6 of my bank statement? It's blank, blah, blah, blah. And it just slows down the process. And frankly, it adds a lot of stress to it. And so one of the big goals on my team, of course, is to have that be as, easy an experience as possible. And we're going to talk about this coming up. How do you approach the process of buying a house? What should you do first? What really should you be doing from point A to point Z? So, Mike, I really want to thank you for coming on the program. Any last thoughts?
No, I appreciate being here, man. I listen every week. Can't wait to hear the next one, and looking forward to seeing you soon and close another deal for you. How
do people get in touch with you if they want to ask you a question or talk about a refinance, talk about buying a home?
Sure. I'll give you my number. That's 412-953-2491. And then you can also just send me an email. It's michael.santelli@movement.com. And you can also just get a hold of Brian too. He'll put you in touch with
Yep, I'll put you right in touch with him. All right, buddy. Thanks a lot for coming in this morning. I really appreciate it. Appreciate all the information, and let's try and get on the water soon.
You got it. All right. Thanks, Brian.
Stick around, Charleston. We'll be right back with more of the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show right here on the Big Talker 1250 WTMA.
Find Brian Beatty online at listingsincharleston.com. The Brian Beatty Real Estate Show continues next on the Big Talker 1250 WTMA.
1250 WTMA.
You're listening to the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show on the Big Talker 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com.
Welcome back, Charleston, and thanks again for tuning in to the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show here on the Big Talker 1250 WTMA. Big shout out to Michael Santelli of Movement Mortgage, who was just on the program talking about the process of obtaining a loan, helping you guys better understand some things, how are interest rates determined, what should you be doing first, the difference between pre-qualification and pre-approval. Michael takes my team's clients, all the way through the underwriting process while we're actually searching for the home. That way, if a buyer finds a property they love, we then get to go to the listing agent and say, my buyer is already approved for this mortgage. Now all we need to do is get the appraisal and do the home inspection. It's very, very simple, but it takes work on the buyer's end, the borrower's end. And so that's why I brought him in. So thanks again, Mike. What I want to talk about now is kind of just the process of searching for a buyer's agent. So let me first just say that, a lot of people kind of find their real estate agent by accident. And what I mean by that is this. When somebody decides it's time to sell their house, they typically interview several realtors from different companies, and they determine which one's the best one for them. They want someone that's going to, represent them and someone they feel will do an effective job at marketing their home. But when someone decides to buy a house, they usually just end up with the realtor through sheer accident. So it kind of begs the question, why don't home buyers search for a real estate agent the same way that home sellers do? Instead, home buyers usually end up with the realtor as a result of just answering some sort of advertisement, usually in the form of a property for sale. They call a lawn sign, they go online and they get in touch with the real estate agent. And the agent gives you information about the property, provides you with some quality information, but nothing's really said about the real estate agent, their experience, the services they provide, so on and so forth. So, does it really make a difference? Well, let's just first talk about listing agents and selling agents. So, there are two sides to every sale: the listing side and the selling side. Most deals have an agent representing each side. So there's generally two agents involved. The seller's agent, the listing agent represents the seller, and then the buyer's side is represented by the selling agent, also known as a buyer agent. And agents can, of course, deal with both buyers and sellers either individually or together. They would be a dual agent if they represented both buyer and seller at the same time. But the majority of agents tend to focus their efforts on one or the other. On my team, I have buyer agents and I have listing agents. They specialize in their field, partly because the skill set associated with helping somebody look for a home to purchase and negotiate that contract is different from a listing agent's skill set in their ability to effectively market a property, handle objections, and get somebody to make an offer. So, what should you do when we're talking about, hiring a real estate agent? First of all, let me just say, I simply recommend that you take as much care in hiring a real estate agent as you would in any other professional. Ask questions, ask about education, experience, availability, customer service. How focused are they? And so some people will say, well, wait a minute, I don't even really need a buyer agent, because I'll get calls like this from time to time where somebody will call and they'll want to deal directly with the listing agent. So why not just make an offer with the listing agent? So let's just say, for argument's sake, that you see a property and it's perfect and you don't have an agent yet. Do you make an offer with the listing agent? Well, like I said, most deals have two agents that are involved. The listing agent markets the house and represents the seller. The selling agent represents the buyer. The seller is the one that pays all the commissions to both agents. So when you make an offer directly to the listing agent, there's only one agent involved, of course, instead of two. That's so things work a little differently. When you make an offer directly with the listing agent, the agent, of course, is going to disclose to you the possible working relationships that exist, whether they're going to represent both you and the seller or just represent the seller and you represent yourself. And there's going to be a document you sign called an agency disclosure brochure that spells out that relationship. And so when an agent represents both sides, an ethical agent really becomes more of a kind of a transaction facilitator, if you will, or really it's called a dual agent, depending upon what state you're in, of course. But in South Carolina, our duties to our clients remain the same. However, we cannot advocate for one client over the other. You know, let's say that you hire a buyer agent and they are your exclusive buyer agent. You want that buyer agent to go out and get as much information out of that seller as possible. Why are they selling? What would motivate them to take a low offer? How do we structure an offer that kind of appeals to what they have going on in their personal life? If you're working with the listing agent, that listing agent is not going to tell you anything that compromises that seller's position. They cannot breach their confidentiality, meaning they're not going to tell you how low the seller is going to go on their price, just like they're not going to go back to the seller and tell them how much you can afford to buy that house for. So they become Switzerland. They're neutral. They become professional transaction facilitators with a few added on benefits. So most real estate transactions go fine, but almost everyone has a challenge or two. And the challenges are, they're often routine, but sometimes they're not. And one party may come out on top in a dispute, and the other might feel like they got slighted. They didn't come out on top. So when there's only one agent, the buyer may sometimes feel like the agent took the seller's side in a dispute. And then even if the criticism is not merited, it's human nature, just being what it is, to blame somebody. And we as the real estate agent are the first person that people blame. Now, of course, that real estate agent has to be doing everything by the book in order to avoid that sort of criticism. But it still happens. In the end, make an informed decision. If you're considering making an offer directly to the listing agent, you need to ask some questions. What are you giving up by not having your own agent? What will you gain by presenting an offer directly with the listing agent? When you get your answers, just make your decision and make sure that it's what you want to do. So when we come back, I'm going to talk a little bit about, why listing agents advertise. Is it really what you think? And then I'm going to give you some tips on interviewing a really good real estate agent. So stick around. This is the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show right here on the Big Talker 1250 WTMA.
Stay tuned for more of the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show on 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com. WTMA! Now, the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show continues on Charleston's Big Talker 1250 WTMA.
Welcome back, Charleston, to the last few minutes of the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show here on the Big Talker 1250 WTMA. I'm Brian Beatty. I want to finish our discussion about finding an excellent buyer agent and helping you better understand the process associated with starting your home search. And that's really to, as Michael Santelli with Movement Mortgage said, get approved for a mortgage, find a really good real estate agent, and then go find a house. Now, what I was kind of alluding to before we took a break was that there are going to be some agents out there. There are listing agents out there that take listings knowing that listing will likely not sell. I mean, this past week, I walked away from 2 listings that, hey, if I just wanted to put a sign in the yard, I could have had a listing, but I didn't because the home is not going to sell for the amount of money those sellers need in order for that process to make sense for them. I am not the type of agent that just tells people what they want to hear for the sake of putting my sign in the ground to get leads from it. And that's what some agents do. So you as a buyer need to understand that there are agents out there that will leverage their listing either to find more seller listings by playing up their marketing and gearing it towards sellers, or finding buyers. Hey, I got a listing. That's great. Is it going to sell at that price? No. Am I going to at least find some buyers that inquire about the property, and can I possibly sell them something else? Yes. That's kind of the maybe one of the main benefits to that particular agent, or at least that kind of agent, is that they're still going to get some business from it. It doesn't matter if the home sells or not. They're still going to help somebody buy something. So you as a buyer need to understand that, every realtor with a license can show you every property available for sale in the MLS. So since that's true, you can call literally any real estate office and find a real estate agent that's willing to show you houses for sale. The problem is that you don't know if you're talking to an excellent realtor or, the other end of the spectrum, kind of a lazy, inactive, part-time real estate agent that really isn't honing their craft and is just kind of kicking their feet up, waiting for the phone to ring. They're not doing anything proactive to secure business or learn, educate themselves on the process, the market, to be better resources for their clients. So what happens when you call on a real estate ad, of course, is that you're often, you schedule an appointment to go look at the advertised home. And while you're out looking at that home, you're probably going to want to look at a few others. So the agent that shows you that initial property offers to show you a few others. You say yes. And then eventually you and that real estate agent kind of zero in on what you need and like in the proper price range. And eventually you make an offer on something. And that's how most buyers find their realtor, by accident. So I want you to think about something. What if cars were sold like real estate? There are no more cars on lots. There's no more dealerships. New and used cars are just kind of parked all over the place. So if you want a Ford, there are no more Ford dealerships. You want a Mercedes, there are no longer any Mercedes dealerships. If you want to look at a car on your own, you've got to just drive around and see what you can find. And even then, if you find something you like, you can only look at it from the outside because you don't have the keys. Now, there are some people with keys, and they also have a computer that tells them where all the cars are parked, what model and make they are, what engine size they have, how many miles are on the odometer, and they get paid a commission for selling the cars. And so some of these commissioned agents just kind of sit around and look at the computer and they kind of wait for the phone to ring. But some of them go out and they look for new cars. They physically inspect the interior and the exterior of the car. They flip open, the hood. They turn on the ignition. They listen to the sound of the engine. They're interested in finding the best cars so their customers refer future clients to them. So who would you rather call? Do you want to go and find random cars on your own? Or do you want to have one of these experts help you with your search? It's the same methodology. I highly recommend that if you're going to purchase a home, that you interview real estate agents. Find somebody that you can trust and work well with. When you interview realtors for the job, you want someone who will be concerned about you and will take care of your interests. They need to be able to communicate effectively with you, listen, offer guidance, demonstrate that they have the experience to assist you with such an important transaction. You also want somebody that's sharp enough to kind of ask you those pointed questions, and someone that's bold enough to talk straight with you instead of always just telling you what you want to hear. Kind of like what I just said about those two sellers that wanted me to work with them, but I could not help them. The market didn't support what they were trying to do. And so being a professional, I need to be honest with them and tell them what the market is saying, because I am their door into the market. I'm the one that's the expert in the market, not them. They know what they want. It's my job to get that for them if it's feasible, if it's reasonable. In those particular instances, it just wasn't. And of course, realtors are also supposed to act as your agent. They're looking out for your interests before their own. So you want a real estate agent who takes that responsibility extremely seriously. Testimonials or references from past clients. That's a great way to kind of validate their claims. If you're talking to a real estate agent and it just sounds a little too good to be true, and they're saying, and I run into this all the time when I'm on listing appointments with sellers where, well, we had this agent say he was going to do this, and this. And I'm shaking my head because I just know that they're probably going to end up doing 20 to 30% of what they said they were going to do. When you get to the point where you're selling almost 200 homes a year, you start kind of competing with some of the same people. You know what their strategies are. You know what they're saying to get the business. You know how many listings they're taking versus how many listings they're actually selling. All that fun stuff. It just goes into the market research, which is done when you are operating an effective and successful company. So testimonials, references from past clients, it's a great way to cut through all of that and just go straight to the source. If they're not willing to share that, or if someone just seems too much like a salesman, then maybe you should continue to look. So if you want a list of questions that you want to ask either a buyer agent or a listing agent, I am happy to provide that to you. If you want to interview my team, we will give you the honest truth on every single question you ask us, and we'll do it with integrity. So if you'd like to reach out to me, or if you'd like a copy of that list, either give me a call, 843-345-1273, or go to my website, listingsincharleston.com. Thanks so much, Charleston, and have a great weekend. And thanks for listening to the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show on the Big Talker 1250 WTMA.
Join us for another edition of the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show next Saturday morning at 9 and Sunday morning at 10. Contact Brian Beatty online at listingsincharleston.com. That's listingsincharleston.com. Or call him at 843-345-1273. 843-345-1273.